The H1B Guy here, and today, the H1B Guy news for the week ending November 13th, 2020. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to produce more content like this for you. I also wanted to mention the H1B Guy offers a variety of consulting services. If I can provide you peace of mind by helping you bridge the gap between your employer and your immigration attorney, please reach out. I'd love to hear how I can help you. I wanted to say one last big thank you to Christine Mikulajuk, who took the time to join me on the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out 4, and what I've declared the fastest 2 hours in immigration conversation ever. There were so many great comments from that discussion, including, quote, the worst way to come to America is on merit and skill, and the analogy of being frozen in time as an employment-based immigrant in the U.S. If you have some time, please check out our conversation. Now, the news. November 9th, 2020. Posted by the American Immigration Lawyer Association, titled A Vision for America as a Welcoming Nation, AILA Recommendations for the Future of Immigration. If we scroll down to page 15, you'll see, quote, 11, reform employment-based and family-based visa programs. And their recommendations are, quote, to ensure efficient processing of work permits and employment authorization verification, provide relief to individuals stuck in the immigrant visa backlogs, recapture visas previously available but not allocated as authorized in the INA, exempt derivatives of principal immigrant visa applicants from the total annual immigrant visa allocation, the visa cap, through administrative means. Promote fair wages for U.S. and foreign workers. This means that wages should continue to be collected and scientifically calculated using statistical norms with the Department of Labor, can level without political interference. Promote immigrant entrepreneurship, business growth, investment, and job creation to revive the U.S. economy, spur innovation and job growth, improve the H-1B program. The administration must ensure that the H-1B adjudications are consistent with USCIS statute and regulations, such that it is a viable and flexible option for U.S. employers of all sizes and across all industries, while exploring opportunities to address the needs of U.S. employers through alternative mechanisms. The administration should halt or rescind regulations published in the fall of 2020 on the H-1B program, improve the H-2B program, and improve the EB-5 investor program. So, buried all the way down on page 15 of AILA's PDF is their 11th recommendation, which addresses employment and family-based visas together. Let's be honest. Employment-based visas and family-based visas are two entirely different beasts, but even immigration attorneys group them together. Why? Well, that's because attorneys, for the most part, see dollar signs. Employment or family-based visas, it doesn't matter to them. Legal fees are legal fees. Interestingly enough, they want wage levels to be collected and scientifically calculated without political interference. I definitely agree with the recommendation of improving the H-1B. Consistency is the key with adjudications. It simply cannot be left up to the discretion of the processing officer. The H-1B needs to be an option for tech startups, small businesses, and large enterprises. Over my career, I've witnessed H-1B employees make significant impacts across a variety of organizations and industries. We cannot continue to narrow the scope of the H-1B visa and expect similar results. As for the halting or rescinding of all regulations published in fall 2020 for the H-1B visa is a very big overreach. There's no way a new administration will rescind every executive action targeted towards the H-1B. In fact, unless it's blocked by the courts, I do not expect President-elect Biden's administration to rescind the H-1B IFR that included the new wage levels. November 9th, 2020, in an article written by Stuart Anderson for Forbes titled DHS rule aims to make qualifying for an H-1B visa impossible for most. Quote, the new DHS regulation adds the language, the required specialized studies must be directly related to the position. Second, the DHS rule uses the phrase directly related specific specialty, a phrase that does not appear in the statute, to narrow which positions are considered a specialty occupation. The new rules uses questionable reasoning and removes from the regulation the words normally and common. DHS writes, the current regulatory criteria states that a bachelor's degree may be normally required or common to the industry, or that the knowledge required for the position is usually associated with at least a bachelor's degree or equivalent. The words normally, common, and usually are not found in the statute and therefore should not appear in the regulation. According to DHS, this change means that the petitioner will have to establish that the bachelor's degree in a specific specialty or its equivalent is a minimum requirement for entry into the occupation in the United States. By showing that this is always the requirement for the occupation as a whole, the occupational requirement within the relevant industry, the petitioner's particularized requirement, or because the position is so specialized, complex, or unique that it is necessarily required to perform the duties of the specific position. Under the DHS rule, it's not clear that any of the valued employees would qualify for an H-1B visa because the individual's degree is not sufficiently specialized, even though these employees were well qualified with relevant coursework and possessed the needed skills to fill these positions, per Zane Brown, Vice President and Associate General Counselor, Labor and Employment at Amazon. I have to be very honest here. I'm okay with redefining the definition of specialty occupation. If we want honest reform that mutually benefits everyone, then there needs to be a definitive definition of what a specialty occupation actually is and the requirements to qualify. But narrowing the definition to a point that makes it virtually impossible for most H-1Bs living and working in the US to qualify going forward is not the correct approach either. While a degree can be relevant to the occupation, the question needs to be asked, should it be weighted more than experience? While the new wage rule has been at the forefront of recently filed lawsuits, the new definition of specialty occupation could end up being the change that has much more far-reaching impact. November 10th, 2020, in an article written by Sarah Butcher for eFinancial Careers titled, Biden can overturn Trump's H-1B visa restrictions with executive orders. Quote, with Joe Biden preparing to become the next president of the United States, the hope is that it will soon be possible for bankers and technologists to enter the country on H-1B visa again. However, anyone looking for clues on Biden's intentions on immigration won't find much on the new administration's transition website launched yesterday. It neglects to mention visa issues entirely. There has been some skepticism as to whether Biden will be able to make headway on immigration policy without control of the Senate. However, this appears to be misplaced. Biden should be able to change the H-1B visa rules using executive orders, says Philip C. Curtis, an immigration attorney who sources the visas for corporate clients. After promising to revoke Trump's H-1B visa ban in July, Biden could, in theory, overturn these requirements with executive orders he's expected to unveil on the first day of his presidency. The president-elect was endorsed in September by very senior figures in the technology industry who objected to what they described as Trump's discouragement of the most brilliant people in the world, who were unable to work in the U.S. by the virtue of immigration restrictions. If the H-1B ban is lifted, investment banks and hedge funds are likely to be among the beneficiaries. Finance firms typically hire H-1B visa holders into technology and quant roles and argue it's difficult to find sufficient high-caliber staff for these niche positions in the U.S. I thought the opening statement of this article was very telling. As I covered on Tuesday discussing President-elect Biden's first 100 days in office, there was no mention of temporary foreign workers or employment-based preferences. Although it could still be a very high possibility that the Biden administration could rescind the series of executive actions signed by President Trump, as the article alludes to, I don't foresee that happening. It appears that President elect Joe Biden will side with big technology, and that implies to me a lot more of the same for H1Bs going into 2021. There's no doubt that big tech and the financial sector have the most to lose as it stands with the current restrictions in place surrounding the H1B visas. In case it wasn't already evident in her previous articles that I've covered, Sarah definitely doesn't agree with the H1B visa. Closing the article by stating finance firms typically hire H1B visa holders into technology and quant roles and argue that it's difficult to find sufficient high caliber staff for these niche positions in the US. Without exactly saying it, her point is that finance firms use H1Bs as cheap labor compared to their American counterparts. The irony is that she's previously covered the very high wage levels earned by H1Bs working in hedge funds. For the full post on the H1B Guy news for the week ending November 13th, 2020, please check out the H1BGuy.com. And if you haven't already, please like this video, please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube, and click the bell for notifications so that you're notified anytime we post a new video here to this channel. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.